Alrighty, everybody. Welcome back to some more great Reddit stories from r/off my chest. Today we got some pretty enthralling ones for you today. I hope you kick back and enjoy for these 30 minutes of interesting Reddit stories. Now the first one is from Snoo Opinions 1881. It's titled, I still can't let go of my first relationship and I don't even understand why. So, to set the record straight, it wasn't really a relationship, it was more that we both kind of wanted one. We were really close, we liked each other, probably a lot. It was my first serious relationship, my first time being intimate. We had a lot in common, but the whole thing started off kind of weird. We went out twice with dogs, then there was some flirting, and before we knew it, it was full blown sleeping over at each other's place and just moving way too fast. I'm not used to that. I was finding out all sorts of things about her group of friends, for example, and about her best friend. I'm not a fan of my partner having a best friend, but I didn't want to forbid anyone anything. Anyway, she told me herself that she wasn't going to give him up. Anyway, time went by, and when things really went to shit, it was sometime after Christmas. We exchanged gifts, and she had a New Year's trip planned with her group of friends, and since she wanted to be with them and didn't want to cancel it, I wanted to be with her. So, in the end, I went with her and her friends to the cabin. She already knew that I'm relatively introverted and don't really like her best friend that much, since I'd heard from her like that occasionally go to a club with her best friend, so she wouldn't be cooped up at home all the time, or that she once kissed a guy at a club, or that a guy there wanted to take her home and her best friend thought she'd go, but said she'd never go. But I'm getting way off track. After Christmas, we went to a cabin so I could meet her friends, and even as introvert, I agreed. We went to the cabin, and from the very first moment, I knew it was a bad idea. I will add, I'll add here about a week before the trip, she'd been texting with some guy she'd known for about 6 years or so, a guy from her horse riding club, so she used to go to, at a cabin where people were drinking and loud music was playing. I probably don't need to explain what it was like for me as an introvert. Most of the time, I was either upstairs alone with a book, or I joined in occasionally. I didn't want to look like a total loser. Then I ran into her friends, and when they were going to do some cocaine, I was taken back. Since one of them was actually her best friend, I didn't get it, but I didn't make a big deal out of it. The night went on, and somehow when it was time to sleep, we all slept in one room with several beds pushed together. Me on one side, the girl next to me, and one of the other guys, or on the other side, some guys. A friend of her best friend who had a crush on her for years. He started saying things like he wanted to F her and stuff. He was drunk, and I just sat there, not knowing what to say. She pushed him away every time he touched her, and everyone at the cabin was laughing at it. The next morning we woke up somehow. After breakfast, most people went upstairs just to hang out on the beds and stuff, where I was lying with her, and she started wrestling and just tickling her best friend right in front of me. Again, I didn't know what to say. I felt terrible. I'll add that she started texting that friend from the horse riding club quite often, but I didn't make a big deal out of it, and just kind of waited out New Year so we could go home. After that, it was like she After that, it was like she liked me and stuff. Since then, I've more or less stopped communicating with her. At the cabin, I barely ate anything for those 3 days because I was so stressed, and I can't believe I didn't just pass out there. The day after New Year's, I cried the whole time. I'll cut a long story short. Somehow that horse riding friend of mine started tagging her in his Instagram stories. She knew that bothered me, so I said we're probably just pretty different. Then we didn't text for a week. I came over for the weekend and told her that what happened on New Year's Eve was really getting to me and that friend of hers who rides horses. We both cried really hard and we agreed to give it another try. After that, I went home and she was supposed to go ice skating with a group of friends. She'd even invited that horse riding guy out. I found out because he tagged her on Instagram again. She didn't tell me anything. Just that she knew where my feelings stood and that she wanted to end things with him. Anyway, I was the one who ended it. A week later, she brought things over. The guy from the horse riding club brought them for her since she supposedly fell off a horse or something. Interesting. Convenient timing for sure. I told her I didn't want it to end that way. Then she came over the next weekend, and after that, things got kind of weird. After Valentine's Day, I bought her a flower Lego set and a border collie stuffed animal. She said she didn't see a future in it anymore and we broke up. A week later, I blocked her, and until about May, I followed her Instagram, her diet blog, and the horse guy's Instagram. Everything was about him. So after about a week, she started seeing him or something. I don't know. Now, half a year later, I don't follow their Instagram accounts anymore, and I'm not really in touch with her. But I just can't seem to let it go. I don't know why, and I don't understand it. Well, Snoo Opinions 1881. It sounds to me like you got out of a relationship at a good time. I don't think that this was going to be going anywhere positive for you. It definitely seemed like they had some feelings for the other person. So I um, I definitely think that you getting out of this relationship and going on and being on your own is definitely the best. I understand that you're constantly kind of thinking about them and can't stop thinking about her. But in reality, it sounds to me like maybe you just need to surround yourself with different things, whether it be find a sport or a hobby or get into something, get a good book. Working out's a great way to do that. On top of making you feel good, it is good for your body, and it also is very very consuming on time if you're really dedicated to it as well. But more importantly, I think that this girl really wasn't good for you, and that you getting out of this relationship really is going to save you a lot of heartbreak in the end, especially since it wasn't that long, years, sort of length. But I think that that was the best route for that to go. Obviously, not in that way, but most certainly saved you a lot of heartbreak later on in the road. By the way, I didn't say anything in the beginning, but disregard the VPN ad. I totally forgot that I was recording on my entire screen rather than just Minecraft, so bit of a rookie mistake there, but disregard. um, we're gonna hop onto the comments. There's just one. It's from Ghost underscore 8D. It is, we all have our own time to process past relationships or similar situations, and you shouldn't worry about it. Just do stuff you like, get distracted, travel, whatever helps you go forward. Then one day you'll find yourself not thinking about her or anything related to her anymore. P.S. It took me almost 2 years to go through a breakup at the time, so just take your time and good luck. Definitely don't know that they wanted to hear it'll take 2 years, but I definitely agree that, especially traveling, surround yourself with new things, new areas, new people. It'll definitely change your perspective and make you feel better. Alrighty, moving on to the second story. It's from Etro Gray, titled, I tried to put a rumor about my late brother to bed and lost all my friends. So, this is a rather lengthy one, but I need an outsider's perspective as it's not left my head since it all kicked off. Roughly about 4 years ago, I lost my brother to a heart attack. One day, we walked into his room and just found him slumped over his laptop like the lights had just gone out. He was very open about his mental health, and even though he was struggling a great deal with some health issues, he would never have ended his life. He was young, 32, so obviously an investigation was done, and we later found out that's how my great-grandfather went shortly after having my mum. Just dropped one day. We had a battery of genetic tests done and nothing came back, but we were told for certain it was just a random thing. Anyway, fast forward to about 2 years ago, where a situation would begin. An old friend of mine, I'm not using real names for obvious reasons, so let's call her Sarah, who I'd lost contact with over the years, reaches out with a message saying that COVID and her health issues have left her pretty isolated, and she is trying to reach out to old friends and have a catch-up. From what I remember, we weren't the closest back in the day. Granted, the only thing we had in common was the fact that we're both autistic and we were in the same class. But she talks very fondly of that time together. We talk for a little bit and she brings up an old name from our class back in school, Stacy. Now, I'd not spoken to Stacy in nearly 15 or something years, but out of nowhere, Sarah drops the news that Stacy had lost her mother some time back and suggested we all get into a group chat. I have never been a fan of group chats, and I was dealing with a lot of death anxiety about my mom, as her health has always been bad. Talking to someone who had lost theirs felt quite triggering to me. I say if Stacy wants to reach out, she can, or we can all go to coffee. For I don't explicitly agree to a group chat. She starts the group chat anyway, and her first message is pretty abrasive, something like, "You two need to talk because he's just lost his brother, and your mom is dead, Stacy." Wow, that's definitely pretty straightforward. Um, which to me, like a really unsteady foundation to start from, especially if you're not close friends. I feel like that's a really really crazy thing to talk. Like if you haven't talked in years, especially. Fast forward about 6 months, and Sarah invites me to a game night with a few of her friends. A really nice group of people. two of which I would go on to be close with. Kier, Kier, Sarah's best friend, and Rachel. Now, after a few game nights, me and Rachel would end up chilling one night talking about a few things we'd been through. She spoke to me about people she'd lost in her life, and I told her about my brother passing away from a heart attack. It was a pretty heavy conversation, and both agreed that we'd spoken about wouldn't go any further. We say goodnight and we both go home. 2 days later, I get a video from Sarah basically saying, "Hey, I don't want you to tell Rachel I've told you this, but she's come over today and told me all about your brother and how hard things are for you. At the minute, I just want to say I'm here for you. I was a little confused as to why you didn't come to me first, as I've known you longer." I took a few things from that message. Firstly, that my trust had been broken, and the way the message was framed felt like me and my family's personal grief had been used like gossip. Strangely, the biggest issue seemed to have wasn't that what I thought was going on, more that she wasn't the one to hear about it first, repeatedly saying things like, "I feel like after how long I'd known you for, I'd hear this first and not after someone you barely know." Oh, weird. I expressed my upset about what Rachel told her and that it was supposed to be kept private. I told her I was going to speak to Rachel about it to find out more. Sarah responds basically telling me I couldn't say anything because if I did, it would bounce back on her because she's told personal stuff about other people to Rachel, and she doesn't want that stuff getting out. After a bit of conversation, I reluctantly agreed not to mention anything, which felt hypocritical because she was asking me for privacy whilst openly admitting to sharing everyone's information. Yeah, true. She repeatedly tells me not to be mad with Rachel as her ADHD makes her feel incapable of keeping things to herself and that it's not really her fault, which is just wrong. I myself have ADHD and can keep things to myself. I sat with the situation for about a week and got a bit of advice from a few friends who basically told me as I was well within my right to talk to Rachel about what had happened and that I didn't owe Sarah or Rachel anything after she admitted to gossiping about other people's business. I put together a calm message just explaining my disappointment and what had been said, told Rachel that I'd be distancing myself from the group. Now, I didn't expect much of a response, as from my personal experience, most people just get defensive and make out they did nothing wrong. But what I received from Rachel was actually a really thought out and well-worded apology, not avoiding or denying anything, and expressing how saddened she was about the situation. She asked for one last talk to set the record straight, and she said, "I'm not denying. I said those things, but I said them in response to what was false information." Oh. We meet up later that night, and she tells me, "Sarah told me your brother killed himself and left a note. And after the information you gave me about how you found him, I corrected her. I told her it wasn't a suicide, it was a heart attack. When I asked her where she got that information, she said from Stacy." Ooh, the plot thickens. So now, not only has the situation turned on its head, I'm now being told that Sarah, my friend, has been passing around a pretty messed up rumor that my brother killed himself, and that my other friend Stacy is the one that started it. Furthermore, Rachel has been thrown under the bus for trying to correct that rumor. After a couple of days, I get a pretty harsh phone call off Sarah saying how upset she is with me for going to Rachel and that she's annoyed I didn't respect her privacy. The whole conversation was just one big show of hypocrisy. If I'm being honest, in one section she openly tells me she knowingly shared personal information about her friends and that she knows she shouldn't, and then the next she's annoyed I've gone behind her back. It felt more like she was annoyed and the very thing she'd been doing to happen to her. I told her it was my family's information and I had every right to try and protect it, but trying to get her to see what it was like pulling teeth. The conversation gets a little heated and she boils her actions down to autism, which made no sense as I've got the very same thing and have no issue protecting people's privacy. Interesting. The phone call ends, and after a bit of time the dust settles. Now, just for some context, the friend group I'd been introduced to were probably the first friends I'd had in a decade. They got my dark sense of humor, and they'd gone out of their way for me on a few occasions. I really appreciated all of them. And I didn't want to lose that, so once the dust settled, I had forgave Sarah and just put it to the back of my mind, hoping it was done, and that the rumor had gone no further. All until 1 year later, when the same rumor came up again, by Sarah's best friend, Kier. In a passing comment, Kier tells Rachel that he thought my brother killed himself, Rachel immediately tells him that that's not right and asks where he'd heard that from, to which Kiera shuts down and says, "Oh, no, I must be thinking of someone else." Hmm. A few days later, Rachel tells me that the rumor is making the rounds again, and I obviously try to put it to bed once again. To make sure I don't put words in anyone's mouth, I actually reached out to Stacy and asked her to admit whether she started the rumor or not, to which she owned up and said she did. I screenshot the conversation so I can say for certain to Kier and Sarah that I know they didn't start this, but I ask why it's still going around for the group. I meet up with Kier and spend about 20 plus minutes discussing the situation. My whole stance is just asking, where did you hear this rumor? I inform him that the last person to mention it was Sarah, and I tell him about Stacy starting it, and I try to convey that the rumor needs to stop as it would literally kill my mom. He says he has no memory of saying that and no memory of Sarah saying that to him, due to being on heavy meds for a serious back injury he had recently gotten. Okay. I recorded this conversation and had a video message from Sarah. I kept evidence of everything. I was raised in a home where gaslighting was common. Recordings were my only way to keep myself sane. With the news he had no memory of the conversation, I couldn't turn around and place blame on anyone or go back to Sarah and ask why this was still being told. So I decided once again to leave it. I told him it was a heart attack, nothing more, and left it at that. We were okay. A week or two went by and nothing changed. Kiera and I spoke about games, etc. He even went on to ask Rachel out as she'd been looking for him with his injury. Oh, he even went on to ask Rachel out as she'd been looking after him with his injury. Okay, I see. Then, I was blocked by everyone. I wasn't told a single reason why. Everyone just blocked me and Rachel, received about 4 hate-filled messages. Blocked me and Rachel received about 4 hate-filled messages. Whoa. I later found out that Sarah had denied the whole thing and told people I put words in her mouth, despite me having literal proof of everything. In less than 24 hours, I lost all my friends. I can't shake this. Am I the one in the wrong here? Because all it did was trying to stop a rumor that would have broken my mom's heart. Well, first things first, let's start off with Sarah is a terrible person. It is a terrible friend to have. I would want to be nowhere near her. I would want to be miles and miles and miles and cities apart. Number two is she clearly has all those other friends manipulated and wrapped around her finger, to the point where they probably even don't even know her true intentions and who she truly is as a person. I'm really sorry to hear about, the rumors going around about, your brother who had passed away. It's very terrible to talk about people that way, especially after they've passed, and making it seem as if he had done something to himself, especially when that wasn't the case. I know there's a really, really big thing around suicide, and especially being someone's death being labeled as a suicide definitely can put a bitter taste in people's mouth. I know I would definitely feel a certain way if someone said that my family had committed suicide when they did not. So I'm sorry you're going through that, and I hope you're recovering well. Secondly, I hope this never makes it to your mom. I know that you said it would break her heart. That's terrible. Hopefully, in the future, you're able to speak to some of those friends that you really enjoyed being around. But for the time being, I feel like truly maybe distancing yourself and letting Sarah, talk herself into situations to where everything comes out in the end. Sarah's gonna be caught up in a lie, and they're gonna see that she's a terrible person. If they don't, then that really sucks. But at the end of the day, I would say that distancing yourself and maybe at a later date being able to talk to these people and tell your side of the story might be the best bet. Hopefully when they're no longer friends with Sarah. That's for sure. Alrighty, now getting into these comments. First one is from MC Truck Jr. No, these people are energy vampires. You are not wrong at all. First of all, I think adding it to a group chat and opening it with a line about how you need to talk to Stacy because you lost your mother is so odd, or because she lost her mother rather. It's like they were attempting to establish an instant connection by finding something one of them could relate to in order to pull you into their group. They seem to lack consideration and must not have much happening in their lives currently, or they are just miserable people who revel in creating conflict. Now, with the rumor thing, these people seem to thrive on drama. Why pull you into their group just to gossip and spread rumors about your recently passed sibling? Seems like they intentionally focused on it since it's a fresh wound. Yeah. It's weird how Sarah and Stacy are so involved in getting you to be their friend, but are the main culprits for the drama. Exactly. Even after attempting clear the rumor to attempting to clear the rumor. So odd how they are adamant about spreading it, right? It's really weird that they want to spread this information, especially like such a sensitive subject. I'd say you should be relieved that they cut you off this fast instead of dragging you through more and more drama. It seems like this is their sort of agenda from what you've written so far. It's probably better for your own mental health and grieving process if you avoid these people and focus on being with your family. Absolutely. It's clear that you can't trust these people with any of your personal information, number one. And number two, Sarah and Stacy are clearly co-conspirators in this crazy, um, initiative to spread false rumors about your brother and the way he died. Um, I think MC Truck Jr. is absolutely correct. I think you're definitely in a better situation not being around these people any longer. Regardless of if you wanted to continue the friendship or not or work on it, I think that maybe, as you're saying, you like some of the people, maybe you could work on that relationship. But in reality, I don't think you should be anywhere near this group because it's definitely not going to make your grieving process easier or, um, you know, potentially put your mom in a situation to where she hears something about your brother that would absolutely break her heart. Second comment is you did nothing wrong. The problem for them is you directly calling them out on their BS. Absolutely. And they can't continue to perpetrate the cycle of drama that they seem to thrive on. People don't like to be called out on to their face. It's why they decided to cut you off. Don't be surprised if one of them gets bothered and reaches back out to you. I wouldn't engage. It's one of the reasons I don't have a friend group. I feel like it's always turns out this way. I'm sorry to hear what happened to your brother and your mom isn't doing well. And then you have to deal with this. Yeah, I agree 100%. Zealous Ideal Food 466. I think you're right that especially if they were to reach out, I think it would just be if, something on their life fell off and they need someone to use as a punching bag. I don't think it would be very beneficial if they unblocked you just to talk to you again. Alrighty, and we got the last one here. This one's going to be from Any Macaron 2438. Third story today is titled rather. I fired my assistant today after months of warnings. Months of warnings, it sounds like they had it coming. I manage a marketing department and my assistant/apprentice is always late. Gotta be punctual. I mean, always. You're remote too, on top of it. How are you late to a remote job? She claims she has time blindness, which, okay, sure. But how are you late to a remote job? I'm not tracking her since we are salary, but I'm strict on meetings. Unless we have something right before a meeting, there is no excuse not to be 2 minutes early with the client, maybe even 5, just to make sure you're all put together. Especially with it being remote, that's insane. She keeps making excuses after excuses, and I'm tired of it. I tried everything to help her, but nothing works. I told her, why don't you pretend your day starts at 8:30 and take off early? Still, nothing. We wrote her up twice, and at that point she is lying about the time blindness and simply doesn't care. I mean, if you get written up twice and you continually are late, I mean, that's your own fault. Today we had 3 client meetings, and she was late to the first one today, and that was the last straw. I told her, do not come to the others. Being late to a client meeting for no reason is beyond humiliating. Absolutely. And extremely disrespectful to the client and their time. Today I spoke with her and what is going to happen. I already wrote her up twice, and this is now fireable. She made the same time blindness excuse again, and I snapped. You aren't time blind for when it's time to leave. I have never seen her work late. If she really cared, she would make up the time she missed. Late 5 minutes, stay 5 minutes late. After I got with her, HR, and we are firing her. Literally only asked to show up to client meetings on time. I mean, sounds like a really good job, especially with it being at home and salary. All you have to do is show up to client meetings on time, and it doesn't seem like they're at the beginning of the day either. Maybe some of them, obviously, I don't know the full context, but it seems like definitely a few of them are like later in the day, and there's no excuse for that, especially. Her job is to make my job easier, but she makes it harder. Every project deadline, the very last moment, it's gotten to the point where I have anxiety when I give her a project. She's an apprentice. This role literally transforms her into a higher role later, but I'd rather give it to someone that cares. I think you're so right. Before people complain that I'm a jerk, I don't care. It's your responsibility to be on work on time. We all have our problems. I'd rather give the role to someone who cares enough to earn the promotion. Absolutely. Like, I understand being late here and there, but every single day into every single client meeting, that's insane. Imagine like what else she's doing and not putting her effort into the job, especially if you're like paying her a really good salary. That'd be super unacceptable. I kind of gave my 2 cents throughout the story. It's not necessarily the longest this time, but I had read a story earlier, and I didn't think that it was great to put on on YouTube. So I decided that this was going to be the filler for it. It definitely is a really good situation to read, but I don't think that you're wrong for firing her, especially if like she'd been written up twice about it. Now, if it would have been like she was late once or twice to a meeting, even like back to back, and just firing her immediately without saying anything, I would say you're in the wrong. But if it's every single day and every single meeting, I mean, that's disrespectful to the company. It puts a bad taste in people's mouth, especially they think that you don't value their time, especially if it's a commission-based job or like they earn like an additional commission. I don't know what the job is exactly, but you should be valuing the client's time, and then also um, valuing your own time and making sure that you as a person can be punctual and show up on time and be dependent, because no client wants to be like, oh, they might answer, or they might get on the meeting at 5. They said 5, but usually they show up at 5:10 or 5:05, even 5:01. Like, I think you should be, especially on a for like business, at least 5 minutes early. And if the client's early and you know they're going to be early, be earlier than that. Anyway, let's hop onto these comments. There's quite a few. Alrighty, first one, the highest 160 or 861 upvotes is Mage Vicky. You aren't time blind when it's time to leave is the key here. Absolutely. You do the right thing. I have coworkers that are always 5 to 10 minutes late and no one ever does anything about it at my job. We often already have a line of people even before we get here. We open, so those 5 to 10 minutes having to be open, one person short makes a big difference. Absolutely. Especially if our job, like in this position, not a work from home job per se, as it seems they kind of make their own schedule throughout the day. But in this, when you have like people lining up at the door, you have to make sure you're on time and have a team you can depend on, because if not, you're going to put yourself in a situation where bad, angry customers, bad reviews, and then that brings down business. If you make any tips or anything like that, it's going to lower your tips. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen. It'll affect your money in your pocket a lot. The worst thing she had a golden ticket. As an apprentice, she was on track for a promotion in 18 months into the role. It was a good salary. She refused to even stay to make up the time she missed. 15 minutes just to show that she took the role seriously. Someone else in the comments said, hire me. I get made fun of my family for being too punctual, and I'm goal driven. Someone might have found a little job sourcing in here. That's awesome. And then, oh wow, they're really trying hard. Just know I'm looking to downgrade so I can take a pay cut and be an apprentice. Already work remote and can absolutely help you make your job easier. I'll be here for when HR opens a position. Someone else, hey, I'm also open for the role. Third apprentice, question mark, question mark. That's funny. And then, wow, there's a long thread of that. Now the second comment is from Vascanado. This is, nah, F this person, fire them. He probably gave them too many chances. I'm tired of people like this. Absolutely. The only reason I gave her chances, since time blindness is a symptom of ADHD, I wanted to avoid a lawsuit. Yeah, I mean, I think you have a pretty big basis if they tried to sue you. Time blindness, for example. As you said, the biggest supporter of that is the fact that she never stayed late once. I mean, she was always sure to leave right at 5 o'clock, I'm assuming, or 4 o'clock, whatever the leave time was. I'm sure she was like, oh, gotta go. But that's insane. They responded with, I mean, I'm no HR, so I don't know what legal ramifications or check marks you have to cross. But we are all adults and their expectations, and sounds like you've gone what is normally expected, and you've gone beyond what is normally expected in trying to help people. I don't know, maybe I'm callous and just jaded, but I really, with this shit a lot, I think it said meant to say I really hate this shit a lot, and I just have a low tolerance. For me, it's not so much the time blindness, but based on your post here, seems to be lack of responsibility and taking actions to the correct behavior. That is what I have little tolerance for. The op responded with, I'm 27, this is my second position where I manage people, so make sure things are done right. But I agree, discipline is important, it's how I got this role. Absolutely, if you're not disciplined and you don't, one, lead by example, and two, make sure people abide by these examples, you're just going to be walked on. And then third and final comment, sorry, there's a lot of comments. I agree with, in quotations, you aren't time blind when it's time to leave. I'm diagnosed with ADHD, and in parentheses it says, and the medication doesn't help. But when I worked in a pharmacy, I was never late in front of patients. I also was so bad with my time blindness I stayed over more often than not. I hope she learned she can't use time blindness in quotations as a crutch for everything. Sure, I sucked at waking up and getting to work early, but I made up for it and then some. Someone responded with exactly ADHD with time and date blindness. Working at a job revolving around deadlines and tons of client meetings, guess what I do? Thousands of alarm clocks, double checking everything, scripts, automated reminders, leaving much earlier than I need to, etc. You find ways to work for you if you really care. Absolutely. If you really want the position, you really want to be successful and make sure that you get that promotion as was guaranteed to her, then you would probably make sure that you're doing everything you can to be in this role and make sure that you're doing the right thing and abiding by the time clock because it's clearly very important, especially with client meetings. Anyways, that's everything for today. I think there's going to be a couple more minutes of me building this house. Tune in for some more. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. This has been super fun, and I hope you enjoyed.